Just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean they ain't out to get you. They are out to get you. Everything in your culture is designed to stimulate your attention, turn you into a passive consumer. It's trying to hack you. The system's trying to make your mind part of it. They'll do anything in their power to make you dumb, spellbound, and hypnotized. But there is a way out. In this video, we look at some of the great thinkers that have been on my podcast, Under the Skin: Yuval Noah Harari, Eckhart Tolle, Elizabeth Gilbert, and we talk together, me, you, them, about how we can use the very instrument that they are trying to spellbind as a weapon against their propaganda. Hiya!
Yeah, I mean, there are many ways to really start exploring yourself, ranging from different techniques of meditation, to therapy, to art, to sports. But the key thing is, first of all, to have the inclination, the curiosity to start digging, start exploring. Because if you go around with this kind of naive image of yourself, as I'm the master of all my desires and choices.
Yuval Noah Harari, of course, became a sort of literary superstar with his book *Sapiens*. The thing I loved about it most is how our evolutionary advance may somewhat have been predicated on our ability to construct stories, narratives, and therefore cultures and tribes as a result of that. When he talked about how Peugeot is in itself a fiction, there's no such thing as Peugeot, there's no such thing as France. These are intellectual constructions that hang together around a semiotic system and a bunch of beliefs. Well, here Yuval Noah Harari goes into detail about how we're under constant threat of hacking from the cultural influences that dominate our attention and therefore, in my view, life itself.
I'm a free citizen, I'm an authentic consumer, I just choose what, I just follow my heart and follow my choices. Then you don't even have the curiosity to explore these things. And it's more and more important to have this kind of curiosity in a world in which it is becoming more and more easy to manipulate people.
This is an important point Yuval is making here. Like, Adam Curtis, in his brilliant films, often invites us to query, who is I? Who is I? You watching this now, you with your beliefs, you with your fears about what's going to happen later today, or your excitement about what you'll be doing tomorrow. How did that set of beliefs get in there? Well, likely that process of embedding has brought along a whole bunch of philosophical prejudices too, because often we think that we achieve freedom through the pursuit and attainment of goals that weren't even our goals in the first place. Who told you that this was what you were supposed to live like? Who told you this was who you were supposed to be? Better to have a place of contemplation, reflection, a place of witness within you, so that you're not continually tethered to results and goals and ideas that may not be yours. Propaganda at this point in history in the cultures that we're talking about is immersive. Even if you're not living in a totalitarian state in the conventional understanding, you are living in a fully immersive cultural experience that wants to prescribe, medicate, and influence you, injecting you with all manner of ideas that you don't fully have control over. And if you try to resist these ideas, you will be censored.
Because of advances on the one hand in brain science and biology, and on the other hand in computer science and big data algorithms and so forth, it's becoming much easier to hack human beings and to manipulate them.
Algorithms and neuroscience together can create an interlocking set of matrices that mean that you and the outside world are welded together. A simple, obvious example of that is if you're hungry and you smell food, you might pursue it. Now think of the many more subtle ways that the external world of stimulant might be affecting the inner world of stimulation as science begins to understand more accurately the process of neurology and the process of the algorithmic concertos that take place every time you stare at a screen, given that the whole thing is powered by commodification, consumerism, and some people believe even more nefarious ends that seem sometimes to me plausible, but are not so easy to prove or to talk about publicly.
So the need to, have this curiosity about what actually shapes my desires and my choices, it's more important than ever before.
Well done, Yuval. Who are you really? Who are you? Well, who better to take us a little further on this journey of exploration than my other guest on Under the Skin, available on Luminary, that's fantastically optimistic, positive and powerful, the seeker and writer Elizabeth Gilbert. Here she talks about the way that consumerism operates, how you're continually tagged by the outside world, and she begins to invite us to contemplate potential solutions to the challenges all of us face as inhabitants or even inmates of a consumer penitentiary.
In Dante's Inferno, there's a mountain called Mount Delectable.
You had me at Dante.
And it's in one of the circles of hell, and it's one of the most dangerous places because it's this beautiful, really appealing looking mountain full of deliciousness, and everybody wants to climb it, and they're constantly falling off it to their deaths. And our entire culture is Mount Delectable. You know, our entire culture is like everything you're being told that you should want, that will make you happy, and we're so clever and we're so resourceful with our technology that we've managed to create just delectable after delectable after delectable after delectable.
Elizabeth Gilbert makes a good point. Often when I'm critiquing our culture, I forget that I bloody love it. I forget that I love this cardigan and these ludicrous pendants, that I like comfort, I like it. So what do people always say of people like me that are critical of capitalism? You're a hypocrite. You're damn right I'm a hypocrite, because I'm a monkey and I'm an ape and I've got senses and it's easy to stimulate me. So if you live in a culture that tells you buy this, buy that, if you're facing a continual bombardment of your senses, you're inundated, continually stimulated, and all those messages are inculcating you towards a particular outcome. Your role is to participate in culture through purchase.
A friend of mine in recovery says, if it's not a, she says, in my life, if it's not a martini, it's a man. If it's not a man, it's a muffin. If it's not a muffin, it's a MasterCard.
What we do is apply the attitude of consuming that's engendered by our love of products towards bloody people. Before you know it, people of the sex you're interested in having it off with also appear to you as a kind of a commodity. Then people that might be able to help you financially appear to you as a commodity. The whole world starts to just seem like sort of like a lever you can pull, like a squirrel in a cage. Do they put squirrels in cages? I think they do. Trying to get a pellet or a nut. Well, we're more than that. This is not a laboratory. This is reality.
And the culture creates men, martinis, muffins, MasterCards, you know, then markets them, you know, and the dangerous thing is that it does work, you know. It wouldn't be successful if it didn't work. You get the hit. It feels really good to buy something new. It feels really good for me to buy something new. Like, it's great. You get it buzz from it. The problem is it's Mount Delectable. You can never get to the top of it, and eventually, you know, you fall off and crash.
One person who made the transition from the world of spirituality, wellness, contemplation, mysticism, and into the hellmouth that is contemporary politics is Marianne Williamson. She talks about how a sociopathic economic perspective dominates everything in cultural life.
Well, I think if we're old enough, we remember a time when this sociopathic economic perspective did not yet dominate everything. And if you were born after a certain period of time, you don't remember a time when that would have been considered insane.
Imagine that. If you're one of the TikTok folk born in the 90s or later than that, all you've ever known is this full immersion in digital propaganda, pornography immediately available, every commodity immediately available, drugs delivered to your door now, as I understand it. This is your native environment. This is what the economic miracle has afforded you. Who knows what may lie elsewhere if we are able to observe the stimulation just for a moment and not act on it, not to always follow those lines. Like you learn in meditation to observe the thoughts and not follow them. What happens if me and you are able to see the appetite being stimulated and turn away? This is where asceticism over indulgence and what do I want to call it, Epicureanism becomes appealing. If your life is about the constant pursuit of pleasure and indulgence, there's no way out for you.
So now you don't even realize it. People are brought up to just so inundated by this monstrosity born of Milton Friedman and Ayn Rand, this trickle-down economic perspective that says market forces matter, market forces rule. It's really, which amounts to, doesn't matter who has to die, doesn't matter what happens to be done to the planet.
I like that Marianne Williamson, now having fused her own life and experience between those two often parallel, if not opposing ideas, politics and spirituality, mention something that I said earlier, that true spirituality is political. If you are awakening, you're going to care about the systems that are around you. And from your spiritual awakening, you will be in a position to evaluate what kind of cultures and systems you want to live within.
And if it's not the spiritual communities taking that stance, you know, we should be the biggest grown-ups in the room. We should not be these infantilized people who are standing over on the sidelines, acting like, well, we don't talk about that. What? That means they've got you. That's not liberation. That's the essence of having been co-opted by that very sociopathic system.
Marianne Williamson, with all her experience in spirituality and politics, talks about how amoral it is not to use your spirituality as a kind of weapon to attack and free yourself and others from the illusion we're presented with. And now, at the summit of that mountain and many more mountains, who would we find other than real life Yoda, the great mentor himself, the adorable Eckhart Tolle. What he talks about is a kind of a fundamental shift from an object-fixated consciousness to a spatial awareness. If you've ever tried that, man, it's a real interesting shift to undertake. If you're interested in learning more about it, again, go Luminary, because my other podcast, Above the Noise, is where I do a guided meditation every single week. But for now, let's understand Eckhart.
That the two dimensions in your life, you have object consciousness, which is all the things that arise in your mind. Every thought is an object, it's a form that arises. Every emotion is a form that arises. All this is object consciousness, and that's the content of your life, consists of this, lots of things continuously arising and subsiding, arising and subsiding. It's object consciousness. For most people, that's all they ever know in their life.
So it doesn't mean objects as just, you know, things like bottles and phones and packets of Maltesers. Your own emotions are experienced as an object. Let's consider that for a moment. That if you sit silently and feel your own body, you will be aware of certain sensations. Now, Lisa Barrett-Feldman on another episode said we sometimes misdiagnose these feelings. Like you might just feel a tightness across your chest and immediately say that it is fear. Eckhart, though, would say it is an object within your awareness. Do not fixate on the object, remain with the awareness.
This is all you know, and you know nothing else. You do not know the deeper dimension, which I call, it sounds a little bit like science fiction, I call it space consciousness. So you have object consciousness, which is your daily life, frustrating if you don't know yourself as the underlying space consciousness, then to only inhabit object consciousness is very frustrating, because object consciousness is never satisfying for very long, and it's continuously challenging, very frustrating. One damn thing after another arises. You sort out one thing in your life, another problem comes up there.
Isn't your life like that, exactly as Eckhart unpacks it for you? Like, oh, I'm really worried about this thing, I've got to solve it. Then you solve it, or it goes, or whatever. Oh yeah, but what about this though? It never ends. Over-identification with the self and the ego is what Eckhart would call that. Now, because we are all suffering from this on a pandemic level, we're all easy prey for a culture that tells you, you will feel better if you get this, you will feel better if you do that. You will not feel better. You will feel distracted.
When you only live in object consciousness, you have a feeling you never arrive anywhere. You're always trying to get somewhere. You never feel, I have arrived, and if you do, it's very short-lived. And then you realize, oh no, I haven't arrived. Whether it's fame or some kind of achievement or getting this or that, falling in love, I have arrived.
Eckhart Tolle there, just describing my entire life, a series of tiny little circuits, pursuits of objectives, a mad agenda embedded in my head by my culture, a culture that is designed to continually keep you spellbound. Marianne Williamson, Witness from the Inside, tells you that's precisely what it's supposed to do. Eckhart Tolle here tells you how you can begin to be free of it. If you're interested in these ideas, go over to Luminary. There's a link in the subscription. It is in the description. It is a subscription model. If you can't afford it, just enjoy the stuff we've got for free. If you can afford it, check it out, give it a go. It's available on Apple wherever you are in the world. And if you want to be part of this community that we're growing together, go to russellbrand.com, sign up to my mailing list. I'll reach out to you, and I want you to see me live in England if you can. Other than that, I don't want anything from you except your total, absolute spiritual, economic, financial, and emotional freedom. Subscribe to this. Subscribe to my side channel, Awakening with Russell Brand, where I hit you up with more meditations. You can work on this freedom thing more accurately. That's it. I've finished asking you for stuff, and if you don't need it, then by God, do not take it. Stay free. Just because you're paranoid, it don't mean they ain't out to get you. But we can stop them.